We got to get going on some.
The Mark Thompson Show.
This show is a show that was born in San Francisco on a radio station called KGO, which is a big talk radio station. We did a lot of politics and news, but a lot of other stuff too. It wasn't always politics and news, which is why when you watch this show, we'll be getting other segments on that don't have a pure connection to politics or, breaking news stories. That said, underpinning the show is questions about politics, discussions around politics and news and the future of our country and various international events, just to give you a perspective and a framework for what we do. So obviously, a huge event interview was the CNN interview with Harris and Walz. The sit-down, I thought, was okay. I thought it was neither terrific, but I thought it wasn't bad. I thought Kamala Harris did something very well, and then we'll share a little bit with you in terms of a look back at it, and you'll hear a little bit of what she said. But one of the things that you need to do as a politician, and this is just a fact, and it may be a sad fact, but it's a fact nonetheless, you need to answer a question without really answering a question in sometimes specific ways. Questions are asked oftentimes to pin you down, and the best politicians, and it's not necessarily a laudable trait. You wouldn't look for this in a person that you were looking to hang out with, but as a politician, sometimes you need to slither away from a question by both giving it a little lip service and then getting your agenda or your talking point out. The best bad example of this is J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance and a lot of GOP, when they're called upon to explain Donald Trump's hateful tweets or whatever, they'll say something like, well, I'm not surprised that you in the mainstream media would concentrate on hateful tweets when the real thing you should be concentrating on is inflation and the border, and then they go right off onto that, okay? That's like a magician doing a sleight of hand trick really slowly to show you the sleight of hand. I mean, it's so clunky, it's so obvious, it's so poorly done that, but that's the rhetorical stagecraft of politicians. She did it well last night, I thought. She both addressed the question, and we'll get to, as I say, clips from the interview and you'll see, but I'm just giving you a quick thought. And then she got on to agenda. It's not easy, and I thought she did it well enough that it was a respectable job. I have one thought, and we'll look at this package that kind of gives you a wrap on it, and as you watch it, maybe you'll agree with me on this. I thought from a production standpoint, from the look of this thing, it was really low rent. Now, I don't mean it has to be glitzy like those Barbara Walters interviews that we used to watch, but the sizing of everybody on the set was astoundingly poor. Tim Walz looked immense, and Kamala Harris looked like our Kamala Harris finger puppet. She was tiny. It was so unflattering. I mean, she's running to be president of the United States. You put her in the middle, and obviously he's sitting closer to camera, so he's going to be, from a camera standpoint, perceived as bigger. He's going to read bigger. And then even Dana Bash is closer. So the person who's really the focus of this interview is the tiny person at the corner of the table. It was just a bad look. The lighting was crappy. Okay, again, CNN, quick and dirty. They set it up on a kitchen table or I don't know where they did it. But wow, I thought that was almost distractingly poor. She had nothing to do with that. Kamala Harris has nothing to do with that. I'm just describing the general clunkiness of that production. Here's a look back at last night's conversation, Harris and Walz.
Good morning, Whit. Well, last night, this was the first time that we have heard from Kamala Harris in an in-depth interview like this since she was catapulted to the top of the ticket. She was methodical in her answers, with Tim Walz by her side there defending her record with President Biden, but making it clear she's eager to turn the page. Nearly 6 weeks into her campaign, Kamala Harris overnight forced to explain her policy shifts, but arguing one thing has not changed.
I think the most important and most significant aspect of my policy perspective and decisions is my values have not changed.
Asked if she still wants to ban fracking, something she'd vowed in 2019, Harris saying this.
No, and I made that clear on the debate stage in 2020, that I would not ban fracking. As vice president, I did not ban fracking. As president, I will not ban fracking.
And on whether she stands by her 2019 support for decriminalizing illegal border crossings.
I believe there should be consequence. We have laws that have to be followed and enforced. And let's be clear, in this race, I'm the only person who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations who traffic in guns, drugs, and human beings. I'm the only person in this race who actually served a border state as Attorney General to enforce our laws. And I would enforce our laws as president going forward. I recognize the problem.
Running mate Tim Walz forced to explain what the Trump campaign has criticized as his misleading statements about his military service and his family's struggle with infertility.
I think people know who I am. They know that record. They've seen that. I've taught thousands of students. I've been out there. And I won't apologize for speaking passionately, whether it's guns in schools or protecting of reproductive rights.
And for the first time, Harris recalling that surprise Sunday morning phone call from the president, informing her he was dropping out of the race.
My family was staying with us, and including my baby nieces. And we had just had pancakes, and we were sitting down to do a puzzle. And the phone rang, and it was Joe Biden. I asked him, "Are you sure?" And he said, "Yes." And that's how I learned about it.
Asked if he offered his endorsement then or if she asked for it, Harris saying only,
he was very clear that he was going to support me.
Now, 40 days later, Harris is surging in the polls, narrowly leading Donald Trump nationally. Asked what she would do on day one, Harris light on specifics.
Day one, it's going to be about, one, implementing my plan for what I call an opportunity economy. I've already laid out a number of proposals in that regard, which include what we're going to do to bring down the cost of everyday goods, what we're going to do to invest in America's small businesses, what we're going to do to invest in families.
She's adamant in defending her and Biden's record on the economy, but concedes.
There's more to do, but that's good work.
Now hoping to appeal to Republican voters, Harris also saying that if elected, she would consider appointing a Republican to her cabinet. Harris was under a lot of pressure to do this interview. Now with this big moment behind her, Harris now looking ahead to the next one, the first debate right here on ABC on September 10th. And Harris made clear not only is this going to be the first time that she faces off with Donald Trump, it's going to be the first time they've ever actually met. She was asked, though, about his attacks on her race and identity, and Harris saying bluntly, same old tired playbook. Next question, please. It's clear she does not want to dwell on her race and gender in this historic moment. But of course, the history of this not lost on her either. Harris saying, I am running because I believe that I'm the best person to do this job at this moment for all Americans, regardless of race and gender, Rebecca.
Yeah, so I actually thought that was one of her better moments there, where she just brushed off the race question. America doesn't want to hear about racism. Clearly, they've either polled that or otherwise, beta tested it. They've focus grouped it, and they realized that, I don't know that you needed to, but that question, you just need to never engage. She didn't rise to the bait of those kinds of questions. Now, quickly, I see Viewfinder's president says, where might they seat Mark at this event? They really don't know who to invite if they can't get the seating arrangement correct. I don't know what that means. But I think what you're saying is kind of what was said before, that I think Mo Direct said it actually. It was kind of a rough and tumble interview done on the road, so that I was commenting on the fact that I felt from a pure camera standpoint, you couldn't tell there because you saw just close-ups of Kamala Harris, but frequently they went to a 3-shot or even a 2-shot with Walz and Harris, and Walz was big. He's a bigger guy, and Harris was tiny. And she's not, I understand she's 5'4". She's not like the size of a free sample or something, and she looked super tiny. So I thought that just was a bad look, but she has no control over that. I saw something else here on her changing positions. Mark, would you shift your position on the environment and animal rights? No, you would not. That's from Champagne Wishes. You know, I would say this, though, Champagne. On my position, I'll give you an example on animal rights. When I first really decided this is wrong, I mean, the treatment of animals is so heinous, it's so torturous, it's so obscene and grotesque that I could no longer be part of it. And more to the point, I needed to be a representative to try to bring light to that situation so others would decide not to be part of it. So maybe from a policy standpoint, there could be changes. That's where I was. I was evangelical about it at the beginning, okay? I'm still a slice of that, but I pick my spots more carefully. And this goes to the policy position part, which is why I'm giving you a little setup. I'm happier now with incremental progress than I was at the beginning. You know, my goal at the beginning was to turn Kim McAllister vegan or whatever it would be. You know what I mean? It would be that kind of thing. I was like almost a jihadist about it. Now I would say, hey, if you can be vegan one day a week, I think that's progress. So when you say shift your position, that is a shift in my position. My essential desire and values haven't changed, but the way I want to get to the finish line has changed. So now to Kamala Harris. I didn't find her answer on fracking to be so awful. I understand. She's a politician. We understand what was really going on. I mean, she had to say certain things that were fairly progressive at a time that she was running in a primary. That was some years ago, but you still have to explain how now you're okay with fracking. She said essentially what I just said, which is, well, my essential values haven't changed, but I see a way for me and for this country to get to where I want to go with green energy and from an environmental sensitivity standpoint, remain positive while still allowing fracking. So again, you could say that's a slippery politician's answer, maybe, but it does track. And I've just answered, in my case, how it's consistent with kind of the way I am and with maybe the way many of us are. So that's the way I would handle that answer. There was something else here from... Anyway, if you see anything else I need to respond to, Albert, please let me know. But I thought, again, I thought she was fine. Again, there was so much emphasis on this thing, but I don't know that it deserved that kind of emphasis. Brian says, and Brian was great in the meetup last night. Loved the meetup last night. Good vibes all around. Bless you all for keeping us all together. KGO's disappearance does not hurt so much with you in our lives.
Oh, that's nice.
Yes, Ayuk, Brock's favorite receiver, right, will be with the Niners again. And that is, what is that, an $18 super chat. Love that. Big shout out.
Big shout out.
Yeah. Trevor Starr in Hollywood again.
Big shout out.
It is 10-10. Mark, Adam Mockler, the great, I got to try, I can read these over here maybe, Albert. Adam Mockler, the great Gen Z correspondent from Midas Touch, would be a great guest on your show. I told him all about you and suggested he reach out to you for an appearance. He said he would. Great, I'll have him on. You know, I love the Midas Touch people. We have Anthony on regularly. And I think it would be really cool. You want me to take a troll, somebody, you want me to take the mayor of Trollville?
Please.
Okay. The mayor of Trollville is Chris. What's Kamala? By the way, Chris, you've been blocked by so many people in our chat that this may be the only way they see your comments. I still see them. You know, I don't block. I'm not a big blocker of people, but I don't mind incoming fire. Don't mind it at all. But sometimes Chris can get a little out of line, and people are like sick of it. So anyway, Chris, more to the point, the mayor of Trollville is Chris. What's Kamala been doing the last 45 months? I don't know what that means. Are you suggesting that? Let me tell you honestly what every vice president does. Almost nothing, okay? It is almost a ceremonial post. That said, there are responsibilities that were directed toward Kamala Harris, and she did discharge those responsibilities. I don't think she's a slacker at all. She went to Latin America. I do think that is the biggest uphill climb you can imagine, is this immigration problem, and somehow trying to stem the tide of immigration by going to Latin America with an infusion of American dollars, which is the way we do it, and try to build up industry, business opportunities, and other, frankly, ways in which people can be induced to remain in those countries as opposed to coming to America. That's the way strategies about immigration have always existed for the last 10 years, 15 years, through Obama, et cetera. So she did that. I don't fault her for that. Oh, she didn't solve the immigration problem. That A, wasn't her job, and B, you can see how completely difficult this immigration problem is because it's multifaceted. People come here and try to get into America in many different ways and for many different reasons. Nobody cared what the vice president did till a black woman got the job, says Quesadilla 79. I think people care about what the vice president did when they're running for president. I don't think it has anything to do with race. When they're running for president, then you tag them with, well, what did they do? Look in the last administration. That's when you hit them. But come on, man. Nobody looks at the Trump administration going, Mike Pence, did so much when it came to fill in the blank. Mike Pence didn't do anything except sort of nod knowingly and supportively as Trump just went through press conferences like a wrecking ball. Katie Lynch, Ron Owens always says that the VP is a good gig. You get your own place and it looks good on a business card. That sounds like a Ron Owens thing. That's great, Katie. Yeah, I mean, now, of course, they're trying to tag essentially everything that was going on with the Biden administration that feel might be a problem with Kamala Harris, as though she was in there crafting policy. She, for her part, has a tough target to hit, because she has to, on the one hand, take credit for those things, or at least count those things that the Biden administration was doing that might be net positives, but not so wrap herself in the Biden administration that this unpopular president, and, Biden's unpopular, I don't really understand why. On some level, he, had some legislative victories, and I think he's got a lot to show for what he's done, taking us out of COVID, actually got the economy back on track. A lot of the things that are weighing us down from the standpoint of economics are not really traceable back to any kind of Biden policy. But all of that said, you could argue, well, he put more money into the system and that was the cause of inflation. We can have that conversation. I'd be happy to have it with you. But my point is simply, she has this weird spot that she's in, right? She's out of the Biden administration, so she's got that and she can't disown it. But by the same token, she's selling the future. So she can't be all about the Biden administration. So she's got work to do. What Harris hasn't been doing is collecting 34 felony convictions, insulting military families, and selling a bunch of useless crap. Yeah, Luis says that in answer to...
big shout out.
Chris Hultgren. Yeah. So I don't know what... That's kind of a trollish thing. What's she been doing for the last 40? Again, I think that... I think she's acquitted herself as well as any vice president, and essentially you do nothing. So again, you want to bust her on what she's done. I don't think they gave her much to do. The stuff they gave her to do, I thought, and I said this when they, assigned it to her. I said, geez, are you kidding me? So you'll get, hey, thank you so much, Joe Biden, for giving me the immigration problem and the fentanyl crisis, the opioid crisis. Are you kidding me? I mean, these two intractable, insanely difficult issues that no one can solve or even really make any substantial progress on. Give it to me, the vice president, who has little or no power within this administration. So at the time I said it. So there you go. What else do you have from last night, Albert? Did I send you something else?
Yes, I have some more reaction from the sit down.
Okay. This is reaction.
Albert, thank you.
Go ahead.
President was asked about day one of her presidency, and was
Stop this
pressed
for a
on
second. This is
criticism
the
that she
new
has shifted
favorite
away
question that
from
is
some of her
asked
more
by
liberal
the press.
policy position.
Albert, please stop it.
Why are you yelling?
The what would you do on day one question? I am so sick of that question. It is such a nothing question. What would you do on day one? It's another way of saying, review for us your priorities, right? It's what would be your top priority? What would be your top 3 priorities? I would respect more that question than the BS, what would you do on day one? Because that was a rhetorical trick used by a politician. And on day one, I'm going to see to it that we roll back, fill in the blank. And it sounds good, but to turn it into a real question, what would you do on day one, is insane, because you're not going to do anything on day one. I mean, look, what did Trump do? He had a bunch of people. First of all, they didn't expect that he didn't expect he was going to win. When he got in, it was a total mess. Read the Michael Lewis book. And he rolled back, and there was really a checklist of Obama things. He wanted everything that Obama did rolled back. All the executive orders rolled back. So that was really what he did. He went on a recriminatory tirade to essentially vengefully undo and unwind everything that Barack Obama had done. You can't say that, but I mean, on the campaign trail. But anyway, the day one thing is just it's weak. And I've probably spent too much time saying that it's weak. But so get back to it, Albert. Sorry about that.
Was pressed on criticism that she has shifted away from some of her more liberal policy positions.
Day one, it's going to be about, one, implementing my plan for what I call an opportunity economy. I've already laid out a number of proposals in that regard, which include what we're going to do to bring down the cost of everyday goods, what we're going to do to invest in America's small businesses, what we're going to do to invest in families. For example, extending the child tax credit to $6,000 for families for the first year of their child's life, to help them buy a car seat, to help them buy baby clothes, a crib. There's the work that we're going to do that is about investing in the American family around affordable housing, a big issue in our country right now. So there are a number of things on day one. I think the most important and most significant aspect of my policy perspective and decisions is my values have not changed. You mentioned the Green New Deal. I have always believed, and I have worked on it, that the climate crisis is real, that it is an urgent matter to which we should apply metrics that include holding ourselves to deadlines around time. We did that with the Inflation Reduction Act. We have set goals for the United States of America, and by extension, the globe, around when we should meet certain standards for reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, as an example. That value has not changed. My value around what we need to do to secure our border, that value has not changed. I spent 2 terms as the Attorney General of California prosecuting transnational criminal organizations, violations of American laws regarding the illegal passage of guns, drugs, and human beings across our border. My values have not changed.
That's really... Go ahead. Keep it. I'm sorry.
I'm so proud to have served as vice president to Joe Biden. And 2, I am so proud to be running with Tim Walz for president of the United States.
How much bigger he looks than she does.
Bring America what I believe the American people deserve, which is a new way forward, and turn the page on the last decade of what I believe has been contrary to where the spirit of our country really lies.
But the last decade, of course, the last 3.5 years has been part of your administration.
I'm talking about an era that started about a decade ago, where there is some suggestion, warped, I believe it to be, that the measure of the strength of a leader is based on who you beat down, instead of where I believe most Americans are, which is to believe that the true measure of the strength of a leader is based on who you lift up. That's what's at stake as much as any other detail that we could discuss in this election.
I mean, I think that was really great. I thought that was a really great answer. I thought those answers were strong. And by the way, let me just knock down somebody right now. I'm so sorry to do this, but Delwood, you're so full of it, dude. The reason we chose those clips from it, he said, come on, another clip from MSNBC, journalism, not. The reason I just chose the MSNBC mashup is because it was a good mashup. That's the only reason. You didn't hear any MSNBC, Rachel Maddow, or who are the other people on, Lawrence O'Donnell or whatever. That was just a mashup. So please, dude, get off my back on that. It was a simple mashup. It's hard enough for us to pull together clips that we feel are some way representative and significant. And I thought those were good clips from that interview, and that's why Albert pulled them. On the answers she gave, I thought those were all strong. She even touched on the sort of brutal bullying that we see that Donald Trump does online. And for those who, I mean, look what they did to the Walz kid. That was insane. I mean, everybody treats the Trump kid completely hands off, right? No one wants to even when people made fun of Don Jr. and Eric, and they're grown adults in their 40s. They go, oh, how can you make fun of the vice president's kid? The vice president's kid is serving as an advisor in the White House. Mm-hmm. But these guys actually went after Walz's child, who still isn't even 18 years old, and as you know, has some challenges that emotionally make things more complicated. In any case, I'm glad she sort of touched on that. On day one, what would you do? Mountain bike fan said, I would say I'd pick out the new carpet and drapes. Right, exactly. You're busy on. Dana Bash seemed like a right-leaning interviewer with the types of questions she asked, says Liz. It's funny, if you go to the ecosphere of the right, they felt that she was too mellow with them. So, it's all the perspective that you bring to the situation. Heather says, what would I do on day one? Slog through 4 hours of required onboard training and set up my new laptop. Exactly. Anyway, look, on the border, generally, it's always answered in platitudes and generalities, and that's the way every politician has handled the border. They had border legislation crafted by the GOP. It was ready to go to the president and actually be signed by Joe Biden, who indicated that he would sign it. And Donald Trump KO'd it. It's that simple. That's why I think those border questions boomerang on them. Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.